Eric, you arrived this morning and you didn't have a chance to listen to the many speakers that had the floor this morning. So I will try to summarize, in a very concise manner what we have discussed so far and what are the basic expectations we have vis-a-vis your role, the role of Google here in Italy with this Made in Italy project you're carrying on. I think, three basic aspects came out during the debate. I will, roughly summarize what the speaker said, identifying these three key items. First of all, I would say that there is a great optimism. There is a great optimism about this extraordinary potential that the Made in Italy, has in a global arena. We moved from I would say, a passive approach, thinking that Made in Italy, was losing in this global competition, and we now understand that there's a great potential. Riccardo Monti, the president of ICE, the Institute for Foreign Trade, made very clear that this year we might arrive to the threshold of 500 billion euros export, which is a result we never achieved. Ermete Realacci pointed out an impressive list of products where we are still very much leaders at the worldwide level. And so, the big issue is how to leverage on this potential, how to move ahead thanks to new technologies. The second item, the second point I think it is important to underline is the fact that today, we fully realize that what we called in the past new economy and what we called old economy now are joining forces. We are no longer interested in having these two domains fully separated. We're not interested in the digital realm and in the physical realm. We believe that the two things could merge, creating an impressive synergy that might produce something very relevant, very important. I think, it was impressive today to listen to stories about wine, about ham, about sofas, about coffee. And all these stories were there, to promote a new way of doing business thanks to the internet. We listened to the story, for instance, of Marchese Frescobaldi creating an impressive buzz thanks to Facebook and all other things. But most of all, we listened to Filippo Berto telling us that thanks to Google, he's now reachable in Russia, in many other countries, and even as small firms can now export thanks to search engine marketing. Third point, and I will conclude here this very rough summary. I think, what emerged very clearly is that the huge, deal here is not a problem of size. We're not talking about big firms leveraging on, these potential about these technologies. We're talking about culture. This is crucial. Even small firms here can play a major role in the new competitive arena if they transform their cultural DNA and adopt this new approach. And I think, I would underline the fact Andrea Di Benedetto made that point very clearly. We have this tremendous advantage, this craft culture that is fully embedded in our way of doing business. We have to bring this to the attention of a global audience. So it's not just for big firms. I'm talking to a very big firm, but we're talking about small firms creating an ecosystem which is fully coherent with the challenges we have in front of us. So today you wrote an op-ed, which I read with great attention on Repubblica, and for those who might have not read the newspaper today, I think it's really worth reading. And you mentioned a number that I would like you to start with. You mentioned a number that we saw in the charts that were presented this morning. In Italy, the internet economy counts for more or less 2%, while in the G20 economies, the average is much higher, is the double, is about 4%. So if we look at the negative manner, we might see that we are lagging back, but if we look at it in a positive manner, we see a great opportunity in front of us So, I think it would be interesting for this audience, for me, to understand your point of view. You come from far away, and I know you have lived in Europe, so you know what you're talking about. But what is your point of view on this potential? How should we promote a new internet culture here in Italy?
Well, thank you very much. When I was a boy, I lived in Bologna. My father taught at Johns Hopkins University in Bologna. And I spoke Italian and went to an Italian school. I have forgotten my Italian, but I have never forgotten my love of Italy, Italian people, and Italian children. So it's always a great delight to come to Italy. And I'm very, very proud to be here. And thank you for your introduction. It seems to me that we need to do something different on a going forward basis here in Italy. And the simple math is as follows. Italy is not growing. The Italians are very creative. There are many, many interesting small businesses, well established that small businesses are where the jobs are in Italy. And yet Italian internet penetration, as you mentioned, on an e-commerce basis is half that of the other European countries. It's time for that to change. Today, we're very happy for Google to announce a program which we call Made in Italy, where we are going to attempt to promote Italian products, promote Italian goods, try to get people to understand that made in Italy is great value, which I believe. Within Italy, you have an unemployment rate now because of the economic crisis of young people that is close to 40%. It's a horrific number, and that's a bad number for the future. So here's an opportunity to create a whole new industry which is driven by young people who can put things on the web, work with e-commerce, and try to build a digital ecosystem for the Italian country. I can see nothing more important than using the internet as economic growth for Italy overall. Where will the jobs come from? They'll come from Italian investment, digital strategies, and hybrid strategies, physical and digital together. The combination, I think, is what will cause Italy to grow, will bring back economic growth, and will help us with our unemployment problem here in Italy. I can tell you that the Italian workforce is wonderful. Italian students are strong and smart. There's every reason to believe that we have everything we need to make that happen.
Well, thank you for this optimistic view. We really need it here in Italy.
And I want to say, I know how hard it has been. So I understand how difficult the last few years have been in economic growth, the debt, the issues around the euro. These are very, very difficult crises. I believe that those crises are behind Europe. And the question is not those crises, but now the question is growth. Where does the growth come from? It can't just be Germany. Right?
Let me be a bit provocative, but I'll be provocative vis-a-vis this fantastic audience we have today. It sees some, listening to the, speakers we had today, listening to the, important talks that, authorities gave this morning. It seems, let me say, this scenario appears a little obvious. Why didn't we think about it, so far?
But hang on, sometimes obvious things don't happen in political climates, right? Now, and just so you don't feel bad, what's going on in the United States? The government is shut down. Okay, so you think Italy? Think about the US, come on.
No, I totally agree with you, but I think, especially for us, for Italians, for a long time, we believe that all these, the presence of all these SMEs, this craftsmanship, which is very much rooted not only in our economy, but also in our culture, in our way of living, was more a rest for the past rather than a source of energy and attention for the future. Let me tell you, I've been involved in many debates, and a few years ago, I even wrote a book about that. And for a long time, among economists, that was kind of a strange matter. Now it appears to be the picture appears to be much clearer. But I think one point I received from people from Google here in Italy has impressed me very much. According to statistics, made in Italy and made in Italy products are very much searched in your search engine. So I think that would be interesting to share with this audience, because it really gives us the flavor of the tension, of the curiosity that there is all around the world about these global niches that have been pointed out several times during the speeches today.
Well, the way we would say it is that Italy is itself a brand, and it's a good brand. Everyone loves Italy. And so the ability to link the brand Italy to the products and the commerce is, in my view, the key component that's needed in the digital age. But let's return to the small and medium businesses. In the future, a small and medium business will have access to specialized manufacturing, so-called three-dimensional printing, where they can actually build special products one by one by one. The technology is no longer just for very large companies. Technology allows individual manufacturing, individual painting, individual special solutions for each and every customer. So the digitization does not only favor large companies. I would say that the biggest challenge facing Italy is that you need more digitally trained students. You're a professor. You understand how important this is. It's very important that the Italian education system take the current unemployed and the new generation and fully immerse them in the future digital world, because that's where the growth will come from. And that's a hard challenge for everybody.
Let me go back to this 3D printing issue that you pointed out, because a few days ago, here in Rome, not far away from here at the EUR, this Palazzo dei Congressi, we held this fantastic event, which is called Maker Faire, something you're fully knowledgeable about.
With the Maker Faire.
We had some friends like Dale Daugherty and the crew of this, and Riccardo Luna, who was the speaker who introduced me while you were arriving, was the one that organized this event. We thought that, that could be successful, but we didn't imagine how much energy, it was able to gather, and how many young people came to visit these small booths, maker booths. Do you think that this going back to manufacturing, this new wave of intelligent manufacturing, it's something that will affect the economy, not only in Italy but in the United States? Should we believe that this 3D printing is a serious matter, or how do you perceive all this?
Well, for those of you who don't know, three-dimensional printing allows you to design anything you want and have one of them made. It's a change from traditional manufacturing, which was a big volume. So the combination means that you can, using a computer, design, a bicycle, for example, and have a bicycle made for you. Now, it's not as cheap as having 1,000 bicycles made, because we've only made one, but you can have your bicycle made differently. In that sense, it's an appeal to Italian craftsmanship and Italian design. And it's obvious to me that there will be large businesses that will be run by Italians, that will be specialized design, essentially the artistry of Italy. And it should allow for advanced manufacturing to have a resurgence here in Italy. High volume, low tech manufacturing is gone from Europe, and it's not coming back. It moved to China, it moved to Vietnam, and it's gone from the US too. But what is coming back is very sophisticated manufacturing. Right? I happen to visit, as an aside, I'm a helicopter pilot, and I visited the Augusta factory in Milan. Turns out that, shocking, The Italians make the most advanced helicopters in the world. Italians. Italian creativity, Italian engineering, they push hard, they do a very good job. It's absolutely possible.
I think, this is a very strong message. I know a little bit the Italian debate, and I would like to underline the fact that this is a very important message you're giving us. Let's forget about traditional economies of scale. Let's forget about high volumes, small, value products. Let's focus on customization, personalization, niches, all activities that Italians have done for 30, 40 years, and that require today a technological upgrade, thanks to the internet, but are still very much rooted in our culture. I think this is a very strong message, and I really thank you for that. I think it is.
So the question for me is, what should Italians do to make this happen? I think the first comment I was going to make is it gets back to education. You need to focus on the digital literacy of your students and making it stronger. More digital programming classes, more digital literacy classes. Everyone in America now in college takes a computer programming course, even if they're never going to be programming, so they can understand it enough. It's no longer special. It now has to be mainstream, because everyone has to use computers. Another thing is that you have to recognize that entrepreneurs are often unusual. You have to protect them. You have to allow them. In America, we're trying to get more immigrants, because often immigrants to the country are better entrepreneurs than the natives. That's very politically difficult, but it's the right decision, right? Another one is economic certainty. Now that you have a government that's reasonably stable, have it stay stable and write long-term laws that are in favor of entrepreneurship and stick to those. So you need stability, you need the workforce, you need the immigration, and then make the people do the work. And the rest will take care of itself.
Today, we had several messages about what we call the environment where people do business in. Small firms do not business in the void. They need, counterparts. They need public administration, which should be very proactive. They need education. They need universities. They need research centers. Many of these aspects have been raised by the different speakers. You've been involved as an advisor in politics. What would you suggest for a country like Italy that has been struggling with a very complicated and sometimes absurd bureaucracy? What is your suggestion vis-a-vis a country that needs to reinvent itself, not just in the business itself, but more or less in more general terms?
I don't know of another solution than encouraging flexible labor markets and focusing on the private sector for job creation. Many people somehow convince themselves that governments create jobs. They don't. They just don't. And you're much better off saying there's a more limited role for government for jobs, focusing on education, and the private sector for job creation. Usually what happens is the government just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the private sector gets squeezed out. Another comment is that usually the incumbents write the rules to make sure that there's no competitor that can emerge in the market. So they'll have some regulation that makes it impossible. So here's the test that I use. Can I purchase two choices from two different companies that are very good competitors of each other? Do I have a choice? And if I don't have a choice, I wonder, is there something in the regulations that's propping one up and not the other? I'll give you an example. Again, I'll use American examples. In America, the college system is very, very competitive. University of this, university of that, you can have many, and it's true here in Italy as well, of course. But in America, for high school, you have one choice. It's a monopoly. We would be better off with multiple choices of high schools. And then parents could make those choices. It would put pressure on the system. So I always worry in Europe that the very large governments have organized themselves as monopolies, single providers, when in fact people should have choices. Because of that competition, they become more efficient. And I also worry that the large governments tend to employ too many people. I'll give you an example. In both Britain and France had the highest percentage of their citizens in the government. And the higher the percentage, the slower the economic growth. Now that they've had to retrench, those people are now beginning to work in the private sector, and they're more creative, they're more effective.
Thank you for that suggestion. We have now to talk about what Google has done so far in Italy. We saw charts about this very interesting experiment you just launched here in Italy, which has proved to be very, not only interesting, but successful. There is a new generation of young digital experts that are now contaminating, let me use that word, contaminating traditional industrial districts. These people have been trained, selected, and thanks to Google, they've been now sent all over Italy to promote a new digital culture within firms and within industrial districts. I think this is a very interesting project that you have done in cooperation with the local institution, coordinated in a national way. Are you satisfied with these first results? Do you think we should do more? What is the perspective of Google in this kind of initiatives?
I think it's fair to say that we're not satisfied yet. And the reason is that the change is very difficult to happen in Italian firms. And what we need is the chief executive of the Italian firm to sit down with these digital people and say, what does this look like in 5 years? How will I get from now until 5 years from now? For most firms, it should be the case that most of their revenue should be digital and on the web and export-oriented. And yet most of the revenue for the firm is very local, right? But there's a whole world out there that would like your products. So you're underinvested in that market. And the quickest way to make more money is to sell the current product more of, right? And outside of Italy. So a very strong export bias and a very strong digital presence and investment is key, in my view, to the economic growth. And I'd say we're just starting, and I would also say we are behind. There are other countries which are significantly farther ahead in this, including those in Europe.
Well, Eric, there are three major things I've learned from the presentations from the firms who are today, on stage. I was impressed by Luca Carbonelli. Luca Carbonelli is a coffee entrepreneur, from Campania, and he gave us the numbers of an impressive turnaround. He was struggling with crisis, and then he adopted this new approach, and he entered the internet, and something major happened, and its turnover started, growing and steadily growing up to now. But what's interesting is that Eric, he decided not to keep all this savoir-faire for himself. He gave us, he presented pictures of his know-how. He started sharing. He started communicating. No longer, I think in his chart there was written, no longer the culture of secrecy. This is a major transformation. Another thing that I've learned from Frescobaldi is that, you might not have the internet just to sell stuff. You might use the internet to encounter people, to discuss with people, to have social feedback, to establish friendship. So it's not just an issue of doing business stricto sensu. It's more to open up to an international audience which has, its ideas and its understanding of Italian situation. And the third lesson that I have learned, from Filippo Berto, is that when you enter the internet, you have to do it for passion, for fun. It's not just to make money. It is also because you have to enjoy personally what you're doing. And I think, this goes to the point you were making. We have to convince entrepreneurs, especially small firms, entrepreneurs, that this is, let me say, fun. This is passion. The internet has plenty of opportunity, not just for doing business, but to grow and to express yourself and to encounter new cultures and new sensibilities. You're such an open, firm. You've been dedicated to many interesting projects. What would you suggest? What is the stimulus you would give to these entrepreneurs to discover this new world?
Well, I certainly agree with you that the right way to think about this is it's fun. It's fun, by the way, to make money. It's fun to sort of reach a new audience. There's so many things that you can do with the internet that you couldn't do before. So let's say we have a new product, a new brand of coffee, and we have 3 different names. Well, you could simply have a contest on the internet and ask people to name your coffee. You sit there and say, well, isn't that the job of marketing? No, the job of marketing is to generate buzz and excitement. I know that's a simple example, but it's a simple example that works very, very well, because now you have people drawn in to what you're doing. We have partners that are busy allowing you to insert yourself, to make an ad about yourself using your product. So what will happen is you can have a video, and then you can put yourself into the video and then submit it to the firm. There are many, many ways of interacting between your consumer and your brand. And brands matter. And as I said earlier, the Made in Italy brand, the most obvious thing to do is to include pictures of the tremendous history of Italy, and then allow people to insert themselves and imagine themselves in Italy as they're drinking their coffee or or eating their shoes or what have you. So we can be creative. We can try new marketing approaches. There are many, many different ways here. And the people who are coming up with these people, if I may say so, are young people. They think differently. They've grown up digitally. They have these ideas. And so most of the audience here probably have young people working for you. Ask them what they would do to market your company in the digital age in a new way. You'll be amazed what their ideas are.
Let me tell you, Eric, that I always do the same test. I have 2 children, 11 and 14. The first thing I do when I have a problem to solve, I go to Pietro and Andrea and I ask them, what would you do? And they usually tell me, I go on the internet, I ask YouTube, for a tutorial. This is their first message. I totally agree. This new generation is really embedded.
Speaking of YouTube, most firms do a lot of marketing material, and they shoot lots of film, and then they end up with a 1-minute film. But they spend hours of other film, which they throw away, put it up on YouTube. Right? Google decided to do an ad one day. So we took 10 ads and we put them on YouTube, and we watched the ad that was the most popular. And then we paid to have that go on television, in this case on the US Super Bowl, which is the most expensive ad of all in the United States. So we used YouTube, we put it out there, we watched what people wanted, and then we picked the one that was the most popular. Again, when you begin to use the internet as part of your marketing and as part of your thinking, it's not just list the product, it's a different way of design, which I think is your point. Totally
agree. We're here also, Eric, to discuss what's next, because there is a next phase. We have a few more minutes, and I think, we're all very much intrigued by the possibility of Google presenting something new or promoting new projects. Do you have something in mind? Do you plan something for the future of Made in Italy? Are you interested in promoting something else?
It's too early to say what exactly will take off. We're working on self-driving cars. That might be an improvement to the accident rate in Rome. You never know. We are working on other ideas that are very far out. I think in the nearer term, the most important thing we're doing is trying to make Google smarter and helping you more. We have a product called Google Now, which is the beginning of this. And it tries to figure out where you go and what you do, and with your permission, it will make some suggestions. You might like this, you might like that. So what I would like is, here I am in Rome, and I'd like Google to say, oh, Eric, you were in Rome 2 years ago. These are the things that you saw. This is the thing that you missed. The following new thing has occurred, and we'd like you, we, Google, think that this would be fun for you. That would be very useful to me. It would be anticipating what I would search for. It would be knowing a little bit about me and knowing a little bit about my preferences, because I use Google all the day. Perhaps it could make some suggestions. Eventually, not in the next year or two, computers will do a lot of the sort of traditional rote thinking. They'll do the planning and the listing and so forth. And while we are left to be creative, caring, and all the things we're good at, as computers get smarter, their memories will get deeper, and those memories will allow us to plan better, to think about what we want to do, and make better suggestions.
Well, we're very curious, I got to say, and we will try to adopt these new, innovations in the smartest possible way. I think it is important to conclude this conversation, trying to focus on what, on our side, we could promote here in Italy to better use the facilities, the opportunities that Google provide us with. I think, we have to create and push very hard to make this match more synergic, more vibrant. And I know that here, this first phase has been satisfactory. This first preliminary project with industrial districts. I know now that you might think here in Italy to develop something next about empowering entrepreneurs. Can we count on your support?
You can. It's always hard to predict the future. I can say a few things that the government needs to do. One of the things that the Italian government needs to focus on is to make sure that there's as high-speed broadband as possible throughout the entire country. Many of these are businesses that are not in the big cities, and those businesses need very fast internet in order to be competitive. That is a priority of the government, but as usual in Italy, things take much too long, right? So I would suggest high-speed broadband, and also obviously even more use of 4G LTE wireless. So nothing can happen without very high-speed broadband and very powerful 4G broadband. I think the second thing that I'd like to emphasize again, and I'm sure you agree with this, is more of an emphasis on technical education in the digital world, digital literacy at every form. You've got to get that. It will pay off every year for decades, all right? And then the third is opening up and allowing regulations to go away, or allowing entrants, Italian new entrants that create competition in these markets. In those three solutions, right, the Italians are clever, entrepreneurial, right, very full of themselves in good ways, right, proud, creative. These are the skills that you need to fill the rest of it.
Well, one thing that we usually, especially here in Italy, we usually ask for support in. Well, one thing I would conclude this discussion with is kind of a reverse approach. I think, after the discussion we had today, after the talks, the speeches we listened to, I think it is important, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody here in this room, I think on our side, we will do our best to create something original, something new, something peculiar here in Italy, to merge this tremendous potential that we have, which is, as I said, deeply rooted in our culture and in our economy, to merge all this potential with the possibilities your technologies are providing us with. I think this is on our side. I think we have to be creative on that side. And, I would like, and I repeat, I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody here. I would love to invite you here 1 year, 1.5 years, and tell you what we have been able to promote, how we have been able to leverage on your technologies, starting from this new one you mentioned a few minutes ago. I think that this is our promise. This is our challenge. Obviously, we do also for our business because this is crucial, but it is also kind of a sign of optimism vis-a-vis the many things that we have listened today. And I think this partnership in this way will be a very strong one and fruitful one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all.